Once they arrived, she gave Christina a brief hug and waved to Cara. "Thank you for this evening, Cara. It was very nice. I'll see you soon. Hopefully it'll be a better time," Rebecca smiled, opening the right door of the back seat. "I hope so too," Cara nodded. "It was great seeing you, Rebecca. Talk soon, okay?" "Definitely," Rebecca replied, getting out of the car. "Have a good night, guys. I'll see you later." She shut the door, waved one last time, and walked up the sidewalk toward her front door. Finally, it was Christina's turn to go home. Luckily, it wasn't too late, so Cara wouldn't have to fight through New York State traffic. Christina lived in Fishkill, which was about a 50-minute drive. She decided to get into the passenger side on the way to her house. Cara sighed loudly, preparing for the long drive. She really didn't mind driving her friends home, she just didn't realize Christina lived so far. "You know, Christina," Cara starts off, "I wish you would have given me the heads up that you still live in New York. It's not an inconvenience or anything, I just wish I knew ahead of time," Cara shrugged, pulling up the address on her maps. Christina strapped herself in the passenger seat. "Oh, come on, Cara. It's not such a big deal, is it? It's not like you're gonna die driving at night. Everyone has to do it at least a few times in their life. Relax, it's not the end of the world," Christina huffed. "I'm not even trying to make it a big deal," Cara retorted. "I'm not mad about it or anything. It's just that a little heads up would have been nice." "Oh, I'm sorry. We were caught up in the moment, sipping wine, having silly conversations about our lives, and laughing about it. I didn't want to ruin the moment," Christina sighed, thinking of an excuse on the spot. "Really? You didn't want to ruin the moment? Because about an hour ago we were getting ready to leave and Liz volunteered to get dropped off first. That would have been the perfect time to mention you still live in New York. Like I said, it's not a big deal. You don't have to blow it out of proportion or anything. It was just unexpected. And now I'm losing quality time with Gionni because of it," she sighed, making a tight turn onto the turnpike. Christina rolled her eyes, taking a deep breath and exhaling slowly. "Oh, here we go. Here comes the guilt trip. Listen, I'm sorry, okay? The thought never even crossed my mind. You don't have to bring Gionni into this. You're such a drama queen, Cara. I know you're tipsy or whatever, but the rest of the girls were too. You couldn't even consider how the DD was feeling? I mean, come on, man. You know what? We're already on the road. It's all right. It's okay. I'll get over it. I'll just have to explain to Gionni how much of a mess you are sometimes," Cara murmured. "I'm not even being a drama queen. You are the one being inconsiderate of how other people are feeling and their kind actions towards you. You know I don't have to drive you home, right? But since you all were a little tipsy, I decided to step up because I'm a good fucking friend. You know that, right?" Cara shouted, rolling down her window a bit for some air. "Oh my god! Okay, geez," Christina groaned, massaging her temples. "I already apologize. What more do you want from me? You're acting like I did this maliciously just to piss you off, and here I was thinking we were having the time of our lives just an hour ago. God, you're so sensitive today." "Sensitive? Oh, Christina, I'm not even being sensitive. If anything, you could have just apologized and admitted that you were wrong not to say anything in the first place." Cara paused, steering the wheel to Route 7. "I don't care how you insult me. Just be truthful." "Yeah, whatever," Christina retorted. "You're right. I could have said something sooner. I could have been like, oh, by the way, I live in New York. But you know, the way I was feeling, I really didn't think about it." Cara scoffed and rolled her eyes dramatically. "Oh, of course, because you don't think about anything," she said sarcastically, gripping the wheel tighter as her frustration grew. "What's that supposed to mean?" Christina asked, her own frustration clear in her tone. "Come on, Christina. Think about it. You just blurt out whatever is on your fucking mind. Not a thought to it. You didn't think to tell me in the first place? Never mind how drunk you are. I don't care. Remember 2 truths and a lie at the tea party? How Liz threw a jab at you about making assumptions about her when you don't know her that well? You didn't think about that when you brought up how Michael abuses her, remember? That was a little fucked, no? And when Rebecca asked you to read the room, you got all defensive and acted like you didn't know what you said was wrong. Yeah, that could have used a little thought, huh?" Cara says sharply. "Oh my god," Christina said, rolling her eyes. "Why are you bringing up the tea party? That was months ago. Why are you bringing that up now? That doesn't even have anything to do with the situation." "'Cause it was the only example I could think of," Cara slams the wheel. "That's not the point. The point is that you need to learn how to read the room. Listen before you talk and think before you speak. I can't believe how delusional you act sometimes. It's unbelievable that your brain even works in the way it does. And yes, it does have everything to do with the situation. Never mind Liz starting drama at that table. If you hadn't opened your mouth with such a sensitive topic in that moment, you and Liz probably wouldn't have fought the way you did. Just like how you could have mentioned to me that you live in another state. Liz probably would have let you get dropped off first, and I wouldn't have to come home late. By the time I'm done in Fishkill, it's going to be about 9:30 when I get to Newtown. Timing is everything. Don't you get it? Or is your brain too small to remember small details? I mean, it's so inconsiderate to me, Cara yelled. Well, let me get this straight, Christina snapped back. I'm the one who's delusional? Me? I seem to be the only one who has an actual grasp on reality here. I can't believe you're taking this so personally. It was just an oversight, okay? I don't like your attitude, Cara snapped. You're constantly taking everything so personally with your Westchester attitude. It's annoying and it's ridiculous. Matter of fact, you don't have a grasp on reality. Your brain works in a different way, honey, Cara rolled her eyes. Oh, so now you're insulting me for where I grew up. Real mature, Cara, Christina retorted, her eyes narrowing. And what do you mean by my brain works differently? Are you going to analyze me now? Cara waved her hands in front of the wheel. She stopped at a red light before getting on I-84. No, she sighed loudly, reaching into the center console for a pack of cigarettes. She puts one into her mouth and fishes a lighter from the cup holder. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to say all those things, she says softly, turning the car onto the highway as she spoke. It was just a small misunderstanding, no worries. I didn't mean for it to blow out of proportion the way it did. It's just something about you. I don't know. You have the tendency to speak your mind a little too much and be blunt about whatever you say. It's not a bad thing, it's just sometimes you need to keep it under control for the sake of the group. Cara winced, lighting her cigarette. She continued, exhaling a long drag out of the window. Look, I know it can be frustrating being in a new friend group with a bunch of girls whom you used to know and get along with. Believe me, I've been there. I know it's hard to fit in and understand people, but eventually you'll get to know Liz and Rebecca better and you will learn the type of people that they are and how this girlfriend group operates. I know I'm not making sense right now, but I think the 6 of us need to hang out more and less at parties and events. Do you think you would be open to that? I mean, I'd love to see your house and spend more time with you and Bill. I'm sure the other girls wouldn't be against it. It could be kind of fun, you know? But aside from that, I just want you to get better at communicating with others. Not everything has to be a big deal or an argument. That's all. Cara sighed softly, finishing her speech. Christina's initial defensive stance began to soften as she listened to Cara's explanation. She fidgeted in her seat, her eyes fixated on the passing cars outside. Taking in the words, she took a deep breath, exhaling slowly before finally speaking. Okay, yeah, you're right. I know I can be a lot, she admitted, a hint of vulnerability in her voice. And I do have a tendency to speak before I think. I suppose it's just a habit I've developed over time. She paused for a moment, gathering her thoughts. It's like a defense mechanism or something. I tend to just blurt things out to make conversation or feel like I'm still a part of things, you know? It's stupid, and I know it makes me come off as obnoxious sometimes. Christina let out a sigh, her shoulders slumping as the weight of the conversation began to settle in. Honestly, she continued, her gaze still fixed on the passing cars, it's exhausting. It's like some sort of compulsion, and I have difficulty holding back my thoughts. It's like word vomit, and I just need to let it loose before it consumes me. But I understand how it can be irritating to others, and I genuinely never meant it in a hurtful or thoughtless way, she confessed, feeling a little embarrassed. Cara's expression softened as she listened intently. She reached out, placing a sympathetic hand on Christina's arm. I get it, Christina, I really do. It can be challenging when you have this kind of compulsion to share everything that's on your mind. But I promise you, it's something you can work on. I believe in you. And you know, the group understands you, even if sometimes it can be a lot, she smiled gently. Christina shrugged, listening to Cara's words and watching her hit her cigarette. I know I need to learn a bit of self-control, but it can't be that bad, right? Everyone has their flaws. Cara took another puff of her cigarette, nodding in agreement. Of course we all have our flaws, and I guess yours just happens to involve being too outspoken at times, she laughed softly, trying to lighten the mood. But seriously, I think you're underestimating the impact. Sometimes your impulsiveness can come off as hurtful or insensitive, even though you don't mean to be. And I get it, Cara continued, tapping her cigarette outside the window. It can be hard to filter your thoughts, especially when you're excited or passionate about something, but it's important to remember that not everyone has the same sense of humor or reacts to things the same way, you know? She exhaled smoke and then inhaled deeply again. Christina nodded slowly, her eyes fixated on Cara's smoking and the highway ahead of them. She covers her yawn and breathes in the night air combined with a bit of cigarette smoke. I apologize, Cara. I really do, she said softly. I know, Cara nodded, taking another drag of her cigarette, her fingers drumming against the steering wheel. I just don't want you to unintentionally hurt anyone's feelings. It can be uncomfortable for everyone involved. She exhaled a slow breath of smoke. Christina nodded in agreement again. I understand. I just feel that sometimes Liz has it out for me, you know? I feel like she jabs at me on purpose. I just do it back to be catty. Cara raised her eyebrows, taking another puff of her cigarette. Oh, Liz can be a little much sometimes, and maybe she does poke at you a little bit, but I think it's more like teasing. I wouldn't say she has it out for you, per se. Christina shrugged, fidgeting with the ring on her finger. Maybe she does tease me a bit, but I just feel like she crosses the line and takes it too far sometimes. Sometimes I think she's being straight up mean. Liz does this sort of thing where she loves to jab at people and gossip about them behind their backs. Yes, it's mean, Cara chuckled. I will admit, there are many things she needs to work on. Everyone has their flaws, and no one's perfect. Just like I have an OCD thing for perfectionism at parties. Oh, don't even get me started on her gossiping habits, Christina rolled her eyes, leaning back in her seat. I swear, she never stops. It's like she needs to be in everyone's business all the time. It's exhausting. Liz has a whole library about gossip on everyone, I'm sure. And I'm not even trying to be sarcastic. Cara burst into a bit of laughter. It's a real concern of mine. Seriously. And the way things are looking with Michael, her life is about to take a real turn that isn't even supposed to be satire. Christina couldn't help but chuckle at Cara's comment. I can totally imagine her having a whole library dedicated to gossip. She's like a walking encyclopedia of dirt on everyone. And there was no denying Cara's last sentence. Yeah, Liz's situation with Michael is complicated, to say the least. I do feel bad for her. The conversation fell silent for a time, the only sound being the engine of the car and the occasional puff of smoke from Cara's cigarette. The tension had dissipated. Christina was staring out the window, lost in her thoughts. She watched as the streetlights whizzed by, each one illuminating the light before quickly disappearing into the darkness. Her thoughts were filled with a mix of guilt and contemplation. She wondered if she had been too harsh earlier or if she should have considered Cara's feelings more. They were about 10 minutes from Christina's house, and Cara was getting a bit antsy. She furrowed her brows determinedly as she focused on shifting from lane to lane. She gets off at the Route 9 exit and follows the highway to Fishkill. Christina is still staring out the window, allowing her thoughts to subdue. Moments later, after the car becomes quiet, Cara pulls into Christina's street and takes a deep breath as she pulls the car into her driveway. She disposes of her cigarette and gives Christina a wave and a brief hug before she steps out of the car. Thank you for the ride, Cara. I apologize for our disagreement earlier. Hopefully we can move on, Christina says with a firm smile. You're welcome, Christina. It's no problem. We can definitely move on with time. Have a good night, sweetheart. Tell Bill I said hello, Cara waved. Will do, Christina nodded, waving goodbye. Good night. She gave her a final smile before shutting the car door and making her way up the walkway to her house. Cara sighs as she leaves Christina's driveway, finally relieved that she got all of her friends home safely. She heads back onto the highway, excited to go home to her husband. An hour late, Cara makes it back into Newtown. She pulls into her driveway and disposes of her cigarette. She turns the car off and heads up her front porch. As she takes a deep breath, she rattles her keys and unlocks the front door. She steps inside and yawns. As she makes her way down the hallway, she walks into the living room to see Gionni sitting on the couch alone. Hi, sweetheart, Gionni says softly, kissing her forehead as she came closer to him. Hey, babe, Cara replied, a hint of fatigue in her voice. She slumped down beside him, leaning against him for support. You waited up for me? Gionni clears his throat before responding. Of course I did, honey. I couldn't get into bed. I was too worried about when you would be back. Did you have a nice time in Ridgefield today? Gionni asked, rubbing her back a bit. Cara sighed, rubbing her forehead. Yeah, it was nice. Getting a few girlfriends together and drinking wine doesn't happen too often in our group. I really enjoyed it. Minus driving to New York State and everything, she mentioned with an eye roll. Oh, I'm delighted to hear you had a nice time. You drove to New York State? What the hell happened with that? He asked, concerned. Cara closes her eyes for a moment and takes a deep breath, gathering herself. Pfft, you don't even want to know. I'll tell you about it in the morning over coffee. I just want to go to bed right now, Cara sighed. Gionni chuckled softly. All right, sweetheart, let's get you changed. You stink of cigarettes, he teased, pulling her closer to him. Cara pursed her lips at the comment. Ah, shit, she mumbled. I'm sorry, it's just dealing with Christina reminds me of dealing with Marnie or Chris. It's a stressful situation when they don't listen to you. I just needed to take the edge off. I'm okay now that I'm home, I promise. Let's head upstairs, she says, standing up from the couch. She extends her hand out to Gionni, leading him upstairs. Gionni took her hand and followed her up the stairs, his eyes still weary from staying up all night. How was Christina behaving? I'm guessing she was a real pain in the ass, he murmured. I just don't want to get into all of it. When we finished our wine, I offered to drive the girls home because they all seemed to be a bit tipsy. Liz volunteered first without hesitation from the other girls because Bethel is near Ridgefield and it's convenient for me to drop Liz off and then Michelle and Rebecca and Redding nearby. However, it didn't occur to me until everyone had left that Christina doesn't live in Connecticut. I don't know why I didn't bother asking her where she lived, but I just assumed she was close. Come to find out, she lives in fucking Fishkill. So I confronted her about it and told her that I would have liked to known earlier that she lived in another state. She freaked out on me. So much for being kind or whatever. I'll tell you the story in the morning. Cara winced, waving her hand in the air as she took off her bra. She got her fix for being dumb as a bag of doorknobs, that's for sure. Cara shook her head. Gionni laughed at Cara's reaction, amused by her colorful language. Sometimes her dramatic stories made for good conversation. Oh, yeah. I would have liked to know her living situation, too. I'm gonna guess she wasn't too receptive to your feelings, huh? He said, rubbing her back softly. Cara shrugged. Tit for tat, I guess. She called me a drama queen. I find it pretty ironic, actually, Cara chuckled. Gionni couldn't help but smile at her comment. It wasn't too surprising to him. Well, that's typical of her, he said with a small laugh. I think she's starting to feel too comfortable in her group. I remember when you first talked about her, I already had a feeling that she would be trouble. Yeah. She's a bit like Chris, a mixed bag. You almost never know what side of her you're gonna get. I don't want to assume anything, but I think she abuses her painkillers for anxiety. She's already picked up the cigarette habit amongst our group because of Liz and Michelle being star enablers. Cara paused, rolling her eyes. I just wouldn't be surprised to find out that she's a pill popper. It's always something, huh? And with 2 decades of us not speaking until now, I guess I just thought she would have changed. Or, matured. But I don't know anymore. My advice goes right over her head, and pretty literal too, Cara sighed. Gionni nodded in agreement, knowing all too well the kind of personality Christina was showing. Yeah, it just seems like you're dealing with another Marnie or Chris all over again. Honestly, I don't think Christina will ever mature. It's sad, but from what I remember of her in high school and what I know of her now, he trailed. High school, Cara whispered the words to herself as she pulled her hair into a ponytail. Wait, Gionni, are you saying you went to high school with Christina Butler? Cara asked, surprised to hear this revelation. Gionni nodded. Yeah, I did. Why do you sound so surprised? I know you went to a different high school, so it probably slipped your mind that I knew her. She was part of the popular crowd back then, and I really didn't pay attention to her much. Gionni chuckled. We hardly interacted, but I remember her being pretty self-centered, even back then. Cara furrowed her brows at Gianni's response. Interesting, she says, putting on lotion. I'm not surprised. It seems like she never grew out of her bad habits. Gionni watched as Cara applied lotion and nodded in agreement. Yeah, some people never change. Unfortunately, Christina seems to be one of them, he replied. I can't say I'm surprised, though. She's exactly the same in her 40s as she was in her teens. Cara finished applying lotion and got into bed, pulling the covers up to her chest. Yeah, it's a bit sad to see. I had hoped that she would have changed, but she's still the same rude, self-centered girl you knew back in high school, she said, as she rested her head on the pillow. Gionni looked at her, shaking his head in disbelief. I hate to say I told you so, honey, but I told you so, he chuckled. Cara playfully rolled her eyes at Gianni's comment. Yeah, I know, she replied, a smirk on her face. You warned me, but I wanted to give her the benefit of the doubt. Gionni smiled. Well, now you see that my intuition was correct, sweetheart. Cara laughed. Okay, you win. You were right, and I was wrong, she admitted, giving him a playful shove. Gionni grinned, pleased with himself. It's not every day I get to say I told you so let me have this moment. Cara stifled a yawn, snuggling closer to Gionni. Just don't let it turn you into an egotistical know-it-all, she teased. Gionni wrapped his arms around her, pulling her close. No promises, he teased back, grinning. Now let's get some sleep. We've both had a long day.